Good morning, everyone. It's really good to see you. Hi, if we've never met. So good to see friendly faces and new faces to me as well. So welcome to friends online as well. Good to see you, whether you're live or catch up. Is it too late to say Happy New Year? Yeah. No? Some? Yeah. Well, Happy New Year anyway. It's my privilege to kick us off in our new series, as Phil said earlier, which is called How It All Began. And as Sarah said, we're going to start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start. Shall we sing it? Yeah, somebody have heard me sing. So we're going to read the first book of the Bible, not all of it, which is Genesis, if you've never read it before. And obviously this morning we're going to start with Genesis chapter 1. So we're reading Genesis 1:1 through to 2:4. It's quite a long one. I've opted to read it all because it tells the story. So if you want to follow it on your own device, please do that in your own hardback copy or on the screens as well. So this is Genesis 1:1 through to 2:3. This is what we read. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters, to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. You following it? And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it, according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser to govern the night. He also made the stars. I love that bit. Lost it. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind, humankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created humankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky." Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Whoo! Wow! Well done for listening to all of that. And you're all awake. Awesome. Goal number 1, tick. Thank you. There's so much in this passage. And I went into chapter 2 because our chapter divisions are man-made, if you like, and the account finishes at 2:3. So I felt like it was right to kind of finish it there, if you like. There's so much to say. Every word has a sermon in it, or even a 2-hour lecture. So where do we start apart from the very beginning? Humour me for a minute. We're going to play a little game. I'm going to say the opening lines of a type of literature, and I would like you to guess, shout out. You don't have to put your hands out, just shout it when you think you know what literature it is you're listening to. Are you ready? Okay, first one. There's going to be 5. Once upon a time, there was a fair maiden. Fairy tale. What did you say, Phil? Story. Yeah, fairy tale. Great. So, fairy tale, who's it for? Children. Is it true? Yes. No. Didn't happen. Sorry, I might have just destroyed a few Disney fans here. Okay, let's try another one. There was an Englishman, an Irishman, a Welshman, and a Scotsman on a train to London. Joke. Keep going, yes. Yeah, I should have built that in, but actually, I'd only end up offending someone, Tony. Yes. Is that serious? It's fun. It's a joke. Third one. Dear Alex, how are you, my friend? Letter. Is it for you? Well, it is if your name's Alex. And I deliberately chose that one. Anyway, fourth one. As I drove around the bend, the blue Ford Fiesta pulled out of the side road and crashed into the side of my car. Insurance claim or witness statement. Did it happen? Probably. We might need a second witness to corroborate it. Gotcha. All right, now the last one. This is the hardest, and I'll give you a clue. You might need to be an English teacher to get this. Ready? So Anna, I'm looking at you. This is pressure on you. Okay. The sky is so blue, the sun is warm up there. I love the summer. Yes. Haiku. Haiku is a Japanese form of poetry dictated by the fact that there are 3 lines only, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. So it's easier if you see it written. You say, that's haiku. Why am I doing this? Because I've just given you everyday examples of literature that in the text, in the content, there were clues that you picked up on without even thinking about, that led you to interpret and understand what you were hearing. It helped you know how to apply it and what it related to and what it referred to. Its meaning in its application. And it's the same with the Bible. And in fact, it's really important that we know how to read the different types of writing that we get in the Bible. Posh word for that is genres. Or if we say it with a French accent, genres. So that we don't misunderstand it, misapply it, or even abuse it. So how do we read Genesis? Well, most of Genesis is what we call historical narrative. It's someone's account of something that happened to someone in a particular time and place. I say most of Genesis because it's not Genesis 1 to 3. And that's really important when we read Genesis, that we get that. 1 to 3 are completely different. There are two accounts of creation in Genesis 1 to 3. They are very different because their purposes are very different. Genesis 1 is the macro. Genesis 2 hones in on humanity. They don't contradict each other. They just got a different aim. So Genesis 1 through to 2-3 is also different within those three chapters, especially in the original Hebrew. So we see some amazing things. Now, some of you are going to get excited about this next 2 minutes. Others might go, oh my goodness, what world have we just disappeared into? I apologize if you are the latter or you'll fall asleep. But firstly, notice in a proper Bible that Genesis 1:1 to 2:4 is indented by a tab. It's got an indent in it. Why? Because it's poetic. It has a poetic layout to express the type of literature that it is. Secondly, the description of the days, which is why I wanted you to hear the whole thing, are very different, but also there's lots of similarities. So did you know that day 1 is paired with day 4, 2 is paired with 5, and 3 is paired with 6? They mirror each other. There's a beautiful kind of mirroring going on there. Key words appear in that text. There was a meter about it, wasn't there? There was a fluidity about it because things popped up again and again and again. And it was good. And it was so. Well, those words pop up in multiples of 7, exact multiples of 7. Why is that important? Because in ancient Hebrew, 7 was the number of perfection, the number of divinity, God. And so there's a very unsubtle message going in there. So here's some examples. So the word God appears exactly 35 times. Heaven appears exactly 21 times. Earth appears exactly 21 times. And it was so exactly 7 times. God saw that it was good exactly 7 times. And you can see that in the original Hebrew words. A bit like when you read Japanese haiku, you know it's haiku. You get the cue. There's so much more that I would like to tell you about the text here. But it would be, I'm not kidding, a 2-hour lecture. We all want lunch, and most of you would fall asleep. So I'm trying to get across that this has been so beautifully crafted, every word carefully chosen. And to quote a paper you could read on graspingthenettle.org, this strongly suggests that the narrator presents the creation week as an extended metaphor, which, like all metaphors, I've lost my place, conveys more than what is said. I hope some of you are not panicking and thinking, oh my goodness, this is pulling out the rug which I've been standing on for years. I really hope not, and that you can hear what God might be saying today. So, I do believe Genesis 1 is profoundly poetic and metaphorical. I don't think what I've just said nudges us or shouldn't nudge us into a debate of, should I be believing in a 6-day creation? Surely God is capable of that. Because actually, push comes to shove, he could do it in 6 seconds if he wants. Do you know what I mean? That's the God I believe in. So I don't think we need to go down that, because I think we'd be making the mistake of treating a theological text as if it were a 21st century science textbook. It was never meant to be that. So it was never meant to be the science textbook. Let's read it as a theological text and get the message underneath. Galileo, 16th century father of astronomy, tries to reconcile he's a Christian, but he discovers that the earth is round, it's spinning, and it's orbiting the sun, and it did not go down well with the Catholic Church of the day. And I don't mean that to diss the Catholics either, just that was the dominant church. And in trying to bring the two together, Galileo said that the Bible often means things which are quite different from what its bare words signify. Again, it comes back to understanding the context and the type of literature that we're reading, a bit like the Once Upon a Time. How do I read this? So, this has all been so carefully, beautifully, and deliberately put together, word by word, for one purpose alone: to tell you that God created everything. Those multiples of 7, they shout God, 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 God over everything, from the most distant star. And as Mike said in worship time, the stars, they are just so far away and their light reaches us. It is incredible. God made those, and God made the tiniest organism at the bottom of the ocean. God made it all. So our most fundamental message that we get from Genesis, and thank you for bearing with me to get here, is that you came from God. If you get nothing else today, please hear that you have come from God. So behind this wonderfully majestic, staggering universe, with this planet full of diverse life and incredible creatures, is a personal God who made it all. Not some distant power, but a personal God who made it all. We have our origin, and that transforms our view of ourselves, doesn't it? Our own mental health and our view of other people. Genesis gives us our origin story. It roots us, and being rooted will really help us in our mental health. So, personal story. I had a normal upbringing, if you can call being a Scouser normal. I was an atheist. My mum would point out that we were brought up with Christian values, so I want to honor her in that. But I was an atheist. I was an evolutionary atheist, science A-levels, love astrophysics, did physics A-level. I have to say, wasn't very good. There are ministers, as in ministers of faith, who have PhDs in astrophysics and PhDs in divinity. I'm at the bachelor's level. Do you know what I mean? To be fair, and they weren't very good bachelors either. But I have a science background. I love the stars and the universe and the natural world. Well, when I was 20, still an atheist, I had come back from uni in Newcastle to my home on the Wirral, and I was walking along the beach from near a place called West Kirby, along where the Royal Liverpool golf course is. So little bits of us in Liverpool like to pretend we're posh. So if we do, we say Royal Liverpool Golf Club, darling. Anyway, it's a great golf course if you ever want to go. I'm walking along the beach. It's the edge of the Dee estuary. If you've ever known, it's a beautiful place. Golden sand on that bit. A bit further to the left, it's a bit muddy. But golden sand, tall green marram grasses in the sand dunes over here. There's an island in the middle of the estuary called Hilbury. The Welsh hills are on my left, green and lush, North Wales. And the sky is just this brilliant blue. The sun is just beaming down this golden rays down. And the moon is still up, and it's kind of beautiful and white and shiny. And I have a bit of an aha moment. I was an atheist when I started this walk that morning. In my physics studies, I knew that the moon was barren. There's no life on it. There's no trees. There's nothing there. And it seemed in such stark contrast to the abundant life I saw around me. Something happened to me there and then, and I became a theist. My thinking went, how can it all be here and it be so beautiful, and I'm here to appreciate it? There has to be a God behind it. So on that day, I became a theist. It was about a month later I actually became a Christian because I didn't know anything about Jesus. But at that moment, I became a theist. I believed what I had never read in Genesis, that God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Really interestingly, later that day, my then girlfriend, now wife, many of you know her, Sally, phoned me on a landline, because it was that long ago, to say, I was praying for you today, and I had a picture of you on the beach. And that really helped me kind of cement my faith. That flip. Yeah, this is real. We're not here by accident. God has made everything. And that was the beginning of my journey of marrying my scientific upbringing and passion with my faith. And I've actually been to both ends of the spectrum and learned to marry them. I believe they complement each other really well. Science is equipped and good at answering the how, but faith answers and deals with the why in a way that science just cannot. And the Bible is not a science textbook, but a theological letter, a love letter, if you like, from God to his creation, revealing himself through over 40 different authors, over 2 millennia, in different languages and different cultures to different people with a different purpose. That's why we need to understand its message clearly. So you came from God. You were his idea. You're not an accident. You're precious. You were meant to be. Isn't that good news at the start of a new year in January when you've probably ditched all of your resolutions? Don't worry if you haven't, or if you did. You came from God. And we have our origin story now. All of the, not all, but many of the great film franchises, Star Wars and Marvel, they have their spin-off films, don't they, about the origin stories of their main character. You've got your origin story now. We can make a film about it. But it says that you're special. You are unique. You were meant to be. You were chosen. But it also says that every other human being is as well around us. Whatever label we might put on, what ethnicity, whatever background, we could say that Palestinians are as valuable and important as Israelis. We could choose whatever social kind of friction there is. So being a Scouser, I probably need to hear that Mancunians are as valuable as Liverpudlians. Any Mancunians in the house? God love you? Yeah, there you go. And vice versa. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is, that our fellow human beings, whatever labels are put on them, they are as equally important as us. So you came from God. We have our origin. Point one, the next two are coming. Secondly, you have God's imprint in you. I think this is the most exciting part of Genesis 1 because we've had our origin. I think this gives us our identity and it really springboards us into a new way of living. You are made in God's image is the most popular way of saying it and the way the NIV translates it. And that's a good word to say it. But what does it mean to say that we're made in God's image? If I say image to you, you would probably think digital screen, probably Insta, two-dimensional photograph, yeah? Or mirror, what's my image? You know, that sort of thing. Well, neither of those examples were available to ancient Hebrew culture. So we want to be careful we don't read back in our culture into what we read. The word comes from the verb to carve or to cut. And it's used in the Bible to describe sculptures and statues. So it's probably more 3D than 2D than we're used to thinking about the word image. I've heard people use the word imprint, and I like that too. But however we understand it, so that word image can be used for other things like shape, resemblance, figure, shadow. They're all trying to get to the same thing. You are made like God. You're not God. I'm not saying you're God. Hear me. But it does say you're made in his image, which is pretty phenomenal. Pretty phenomenal. So this imprint of you, of God, placed in you, isn't placed in other creatures, animals. That's not to say we don't value them, and we'll come to that a little bit later, briefly. But his imprint is in you. You are like him, like his nature. So here's a thought. Your existence, your life is good. I'm good at sign language. Good. Your life is good. Your existence is good because there's Godness about you. Wow. It sounds a bit heretical, but I'm only telling you what's there in Genesis 1. You are a bit like God. And 7 times, God says it was good in all of creation. I love the Message version, and at the end, the last one, the Message translates it as, and it was so good, so very good. That's messagey, isn't it? So good, so very good. You are not a mistake. You are not a bad apple. You are not the runt of the litter. You are not forgotten. You are not illegitimate. You bear the image of God. And if you've had those words spoken over you, I break them off you right now in Jesus' name. And I think there's at least 2 people here today who've been told you won't amount to anything. And I break that off you in Jesus' name too. Pray that God would restore his image in you and that you would see that too. Your life is good and you're made in his image. Secondly, part of this, point number 2, you have his nature. In other words, well, look at what God did. I mean, this is an incredible universe, isn't it? It's pretty big. He's quite creative, isn't he? I mean, you take a rhinoceros and you take, I don't know, a killer whale, and I'm rubbish at plants, a daffodil, a tulip, a centipede, a bumblebee. They were all his idea. So, and trees. I love trees. We could get into trees. He is so creative. And he's quite good at building things and creating order. Notice how they were all created according to their kind, and it was so. So, my goodness. So if we've got his nature, then that puts a whole new spin on how we view human things that we do. Creativity, art. Many of you are artistic and creative. Some of you will say, oh, I'm not artistic and creative. But I bet you are in some way. It's just not normally associated with you. So sport, photography, gardening, farming, any form of artistry, music making, dancing, industries such as engineering, thought we'd say that in Derby because you've got to do it, medicine, entrepreneurs, creating new things, beautiful things, inventors, all sorts of jobs and hobbies where we either create beauty, create new things, or bring order to other things that are already made. We're doing something divinely inspired. Now, the Victorian era that does kind of impact our today culture, even though it's 100 years ago, but the Victorian era and the Puritans, which is a movement of grumpy Christians, that is possibly an oversimplification. But, you know, in that era, you weren't allowed to dance. You were not allowed to dance. I mean, you know, and food should be bland. You know, basically, don't look happy. Well, do you see that in the Bible? I don't. And I think this text is absolutely phenomenal for helping us to see ordinary stuff as divinely inspired and for us to celebrate and lead the world in showing how it could be done. So, this may affirm you this morning in a way you've never been affirmed before. Maybe because the church hasn't affirmed you if you're not a vicar, if you know what I mean. But actually, there are millions. I couldn't list all the things that are so divinely inspired because we're made in his image. And I pray you'd hear the Holy Spirit this morning affirming you in what he's already called you and gifted you to do. So listen to him today. And thirdly, on this middle point, women are made in God's image too. Do I hear an amen? Amen. From more than 50% of the room. Yes, absolutely. Guys, God is not a bloke. I know we call him Father and Jesus was born as a male. Of course he was. It was a patristic, patriarchal society, so that was how God was going to reveal himself. But I don't believe he has gender. And it says, in the image of God, he created them, male and female, together. We all represent God's image. No one's disbarred. But I do feel there's something powerful this morning and prophetic for women here this morning, because I certainly think some of you have been told as a woman, you can't represent God. Well, hey, you bear the image of God. Whoa, that's pretty awesome. So you can do that too. And I pray you can hear that. And I pray there'll be healing if you've been hurt in that realm already. And we'd find freedom in that too. So you were made by God. This is our origin story. You were made in his image. This is your identity. And thirdly and finally, you were made to rule the earth, our purpose and our responsibility. We are made boss of the earth. We are in charge of the planet, the universe. It's interesting if we look. So we're made to harness creation's potential, to create beauty and bring order out of it. That's pretty phenomenal too. So let's look at what we're told. Well, firstly it says, fill the earth, which is a sort of corporate responsibility for reproduction. Don't feel it on an individual level. And it's where we would begin a theology of sex. We haven't got time for that today. Another one, ask Phil. No. Secondly, we're told, subdue the earth. And this is a challenging one. That means to overcome it. Well, I've never really thought much about that before. But that's pretty tough, isn't it? Bring it under control. Well, I've been kind of brought up and conditioned to kind of tut at humanity's attempts to control nature. Genesis 1, you and I, corporately, subdue the earth, control it, look after it. Secondly, or thirdly, rule over it, which does mean just that, control or dominion of, which again is a challenge. Harness creation's potential, create beauty and order out of it. I think it's clear that we have to look after it and steward it well, to master it, to care for it. And I think in the last decade, much of the Western world is waking up to the fact that our kind of lifestyle is destroying the planet. Instead of creating species, we're killing them off at a fast rate. So I think we're waking up to that, aren't we? I think I was influenced. I became a Christian in the beginning of the 90s. And so 20th century Christianity at that time was very much not listening to the ecological movement. It is now, and I'm very delighted about that, because quite clearly, we're to look after this creation. I also see a green light here for scientific investigation, for exploration of the whole universe in some way that I don't quite understand, taming it, and definitely being responsible for it, definitely caring for it, preserving it, and continuing to bring life, not remove it. So, we're going to come into land. Maybe the band would like to come back up and begin leading us. They do a great job every week. Thank you, guys. Hopefully, we've learned a bit about how to read the first chapter of the Bible. We've found our origins. You were made by God. We found our identity. You were made in God's image. And we found our purpose. You were made to rule the earth. And God saw that it was good. So very good. The world is amazing. We may have made a mess of things, but we can still put that right. There's huge hope and potential, and that responsibility that we've now got to do something about it. And God blessed it, it said. And God blesses us. And that's not a small statement either. He blesses you today. It's pretty awesome, really. We've seen that this can radically change our inherited assumptions about self-worth and significance, about our hobbies and our vocations. What are the messages, the voice memos playing in your head? What are the internal head thoughts that go on all the time that really don't match? You were made by God. You have his imprint. What are those things? Shall we erase them today and put these in? I'm made by God. I have God's imprint. I'm commissioned to do something meaningful. Pretty good. May you walk and live each day knowing and showing God's imprint in your life. feel like there's a whole host of prophetic things to be said to you this morning, like go, create, build, bring order, count, do logistics, write, dance, sing, walk, climb, run, explore, solve, rebuild. If those words hit home, celebrate it and follow God.